The National Hot Rod Association presents Championship Drag Racing on ESPN Speed World. The NHRA, the world's largest motorsports sanctioning body, showcasing speeds in excess of 290 miles an hour and traveling the quarter mile in less than 5 seconds. Championship Drag Racing from the NHRA. The consistent element that has plagued the NHRA Winston Championship Drag Racing Series for this entire season has been rain, and the most recent event was yet another victim. In fact, the 12th annual Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals was extended to a full 5 days. The final rounds of eliminations conducted Monday night at Vandermeer Speedway near Denver. This race saw the return of Kenny Bernstein to a position of a strong contender in Top Fuel as he pulled off a number of near-perfect reaction times to earn his spot in the final round against Joe Amato, who had run the quickest elapsed time of the race earlier in round 2. In the final, again, Bernstein blasted off the line first, but Amato ran a track record-shattering 5:10 at 275 miles an hour to win his second race of the year and take over the Winston points lead. In Funny Car, one car displayed the consistency needed to move to the winner's circle. Ed McCulloch qualified his Oldsmobile number 4, ran no slower than 5:59 in the first 3 rounds of racing, then put away an out-of-shape Jim White in the finals with the quickest Funny Car run of the meet of 5:45 at over 260 miles an hour. That victory by McCulloch closed upon the leader in the Winston points chase, John Force, who has held that position since early in the season. Pro stock racing boiled down to a battle of the Oldsmobiles, with Warren Johnson and Larry Morgan staging for the championship. In a brilliant display of driving ability, Morgan gained an advantage off the starting line that Johnson, even with his quicker time, was unable to overcome. The victory to Morgan, his 4th of the year. Morgan's win tightened up the Winston points chase. The racing focus now moves to Northern California and Sears Point International Raceway near San Francisco and the 3rd annual running of the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and welcome to the sunshine of Northern California. The largest crowd ever to witness a drag race at Sears Point International Raceway. Over 68,000 of these fine fans have jammed through the gates in the 3-day running of the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals. We're getting ready for the start of 2nd round of racing. For that story, let's go to my good pal, Steve Evans.
Look, David, there's no hands. Normally, you'd come around Mark Oswald's Funny Car between rounds. There'd be lots of hands getting ready for further competition. Unfortunately for Mark, there will be no more competition today. He inadvertently left the starting line too soon in round 1 and drew the big red light, disqualified. However, he was the only big-name Funny Car driver to go out that early. Now, in Top Fuel, the fans are really watching 2 drivers, Gary Ormsby and Joe Amato. They well remember it was those 2 who wore it right down to the final battle in the Winston Top Fuel points chase. They also remember, as many of you do, that those 2 drivers here at Sears Point last year, well, they had no luck at all in the California Nationals. First, it was Joe Amato in qualifying. Dennis Forcell, 280 miles an hour, tucks right under Amato's parachutes and barely misses him. Then Joe, in round number 1, had one of the most violent and fiery engine explosions we have ever seen. Now, Gary Ormsby, he thought Amato's fire was scary. Little did he know that on eliminations day, he would find himself upside down, sliding down the Sears Point racetrack at better than 200 miles per hour. He was unhurt, but the car was destroyed. I talked to both drivers just a little earlier this morning. Gary, do you think you'll ever be able to put the sound of that grinding roll bar on the pavement out of your memory bank permanently?
Well, I've tried to, Steve. I know the first time I made a run in the right lane, in fact, I was beside Jim Head, too. I mean, I thought about it a little bit, but pretty much I'm not thinking about it today.
Joe, what a shock it must have been a year ago here to look down at your hands and see flames licking away at your gloves.
Yeah, last year's first round and this year's first round were 180 degrees different, you know. I went up to one of the tents to sign some posters, and the guy said, at least you have eyebrows and hair this year. Last year I was up there signing posters, and I was burned up a little bit.
If you and Gary Ormsby survive the coming round, round 2, you'll meet in the round of 4.
Yeah, that's going to get exciting, you know, when we get down to 4 cars against Ormsby, because both of us are really close in the World Championship points chase, so it's going to be an exciting race. But we don't want to look ahead. We want to win this round.
A pair of world champions, Ormsby the current, Amato the former, and both of them challenging for the championship this season. This huge crowd looking on in anticipation of this race. Here is Frank Hawley at the wheel of Darrell Gwynn's Coors Extra Gold car, the #1 qualifier. He will be racing the 1987 Winston champ. This is Dick LaHaye at his Miller High Life Special. Qualifying in the #9 spot with a 5:14, LaHaye ran a 5:17 in round 1 to beat Frank Bradley. Meantime, Hawley qualified in the #1 spot at a 5:01. He beat Jack Ostrander in his first round race with a 5:09. The crew tightening the strap on Frank Hawley, the 2-time Winston champ, when he was driving the Chi-Town Hustler. He's looking ahead to his crew chief, Ken Vini, and saying, what's going on? Where is LaHaye? I'm ready to go, but LaHaye is still backing up after his burnout. LaHaye obviously at a disadvantage elapsed time-wise, sitting back a long ways from the starting line. Now slowly, gradually, coming to the starting line. These engines cannot stand a tremendous amount of heat at the starting line. The more heat, the more horsepower, the more chance to smoke the tires. In the pre-stage beams, now Hawley pulls forward, he's set. LaHaye is ready. And pulling away to a victory is Frank Hawley. The elapsed time for Hawley, 5.05 seconds. His speed, 282 miles an hour. The losing time for LaHaye, a 5:12 at 279. As we look again in replay, it was a nearly identical start. A very slight advantage went to LaHaye. But all the time that Frank Hawley had to wait cost him nothing in terms of performance as the car blistered the quarter mile to a 5:05 and a victory, moving him to the final 4. Steve?
Frank Hawley is not happy. We could tell even in the race car you disapproved of the LaHaye tactics on the starting line.
Well, you know, we went through and did our burnout, a normal deal, and backed up what I thought was a normal speed. And then I don't know if Dick had a problem, you know, getting up into the water after he started the motor knob, but took a long time, and then we sat there with a second light on a while. And I know I raced Dick in the past. If that was me, he would have been talking to me right now, so I don't know. Maybe he had a problem. I can't tell right now.
You won with an 05.
Thanks very much.
The obviously agitated and animated Frank Hawley certainly letting his crew know about it. The 1990 NHRA Motorcraft Ford California Nationals is being brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is One Top Motor Oil. And by Goodyear Eagle Radials, the best-selling performance radials in the world. And by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. More Top Fuel Racing coming up next.
All of these championship-winning drivers have one thing in common: Goodyear Racing Eagles. The race-winning technology that's found in the Goodyear Racing Eagles can also be found in the world's best-selling line of high-performance street tires, Goodyear Eagle Street Radials. The champions know, and it's why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
At the far end of the racetrack, Frank Hawley letting Dick LaHaye know what he thinks about the starting line tactics, and I'm certain Hawley thankful that the results ended the way they did. Back at the starting line, our next pair of racers into their burnout procedure
it is Gene Snow racing Robert Reel. Gene did very well in qualifying. In fact, each run was an improvement until he eventually ran a 5.10. That put him in the number 5 spot. For Robert Reel, taking over the driving chores from Gary Beck this season at the wheel of the McGee 4-cam engine, he qualified 13th with a 5.23. In his first round race, he was matched against 3-time national event winner this season, Laurie Johns, who had qualified 4th with a 5.08. Laurie had led the Winston points chase earlier this year, but that massive engine explosion just a week ago in Denver caused serious damage to the car. It was repaired, but here she smoked the tires, adding to her string of bad luck.
Well, we just slide farther and farther back as the weeks go by. There's not much we can do about it.
I would think, though, the 5.08 in qualifying encouraged you for the moment anyway.
Well, yeah, it does, but qualifying only counts for qualifying. It doesn't matter. You're supposed to win on Sunday.
It'll come around.
Laurie Johns learning what every racer learns at one time or another. This sport is not as easy as it looks. Gene Snow has learned it many a time, but here he qualified with that fine 5.10 and defeated Jim Head in his first round race. Now in round number 2, it is Gene Snow in the far lane of the racetrack against Robert Reel. Burnouts completed, both drivers creeping their way into the staging beams. Snow deep stages, moves past the pre-stage line, and Reel goes up in smoke. And across the finish line, Gene Snow with a 5.12, 268 miles an hour, showing the same consistency that he had during qualifying. Back at the starting line, our next pair of cars already coming to life. Here's the guy that is leading the Winston points chase by just over 200 points coming into Sears Point, the Valvoline special of Joe Amato. Doing his burnout is the guy that surprised everyone up at San Air in Montreal, Canada. The Golden Greek Chris Karamazini's driving the Strange Engineering special. This huge crowd is jammed into every nook and cranny of Sears Point International Raceway. There's a lot of folks up there on the side of that hill looking down on the racetrack, watching Jerry Amato back Joe into the proper spot. Amato qualified in the number 2 position at a 5.04, beating Craig Smith in his first round race, while Chris Karamazini's qualified number 10 at a 5.16 and beat Kenny Bernstein in his round 1 confrontation. The 63-year-old Karamazini's having the time of his life, never running better than before, and he's going to need every bit of it as Amato set low ET of eliminations in his round 1 victory over Craig Smith with that 5.01. Both drivers staging very gingerly. Amato in the near side of the racetrack, and a red light for Amato. Karamazini smokes the tires, but it was all over the moment Joe Amato red lighted. And there was no more interested spectator to all of this than Gary Ormsby. He's sitting right behind him, getting set to run Eddie Hill. As we look again, you can see Amato. He moved too soon, the red light came on, the race was over. For Karamazini's another big break, and those are the kind of breaks that can win races. Gary Ormsby, as he gets set to do his burnout, knows one thing. If he can just make the final round, he will take over the Winston points lead. His competition is Eddie Hill, who is just beginning to show a glimmer of the performance promise that Super Shop special has had in years past. For Ormsby, he qualified in the number 3 spot at a 5.06 and beat Don Prudhomme in round 1. Hill qualified number 6 at a 5.11 and beat Shirley Muldowney in his first round race. The crew looking inside the cockpit, checking the gauges on Eddie Hill's car. And you have to know, down at the far end of the racetrack is Eddie Hill's number 1 fan. That's Joe Amato. He is hoping that Hill can pull off an upset here and beat the favored Gary Ormsby. Ormsby going through the procedures to get his car ready. A good start. And Ormsby, by more than a car length, wins the race with a 5.11 and 286. And the pressure certainly beginning to show on the face of Joe Amato.
David, we're with Joe, who just watched Gary Ormsby win. You didn't need to see that win light.
Well, Steve, it's a tough points race right now, you know. Just, I guess I had brain fade up there on the starting line. Just, you know, trying to get a good light and do a good job, and, you know.
No excuses?
No, just, you know, I don't know whether the car creeped a little bit or something, but, you know, the red light came on. No matter what happened, I'm in control, so driver error, that's all you can say.
You can bet Joe Amato won't be Gary Ormsby's biggest fan as he continues through eliminations.
Steve, with Amato out of competition, here's the pairings for the Final Four. It will be Gary Ormsby against Chris Karamesines, a rematch of the race at San Air. Ormsby has the lane choice. Gene Snow races Frank Hawley, and Hawley has the lane choice. Now, let's go back to the far end and Steve.
Well, Gary, the only thing almost as thrilling as winning yourself is to see Amato red light.
Yeah, I did see that, and I don't want to say I was happy, but I was.
Your car looked like it moved around right at the finish line.
It really did. It did on the first run, too. And the fact that it broke traction out there, it may not have smoked the tires, but it was spinning them out there.
Well, that's where you're making your elapsed time, is mid-course and far end.
Exactly. The car's really pulling on the top end, Steve.
Funny car excitement coming up next from the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals. Back at Sears Point International Raceway in the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals, the body coming down on Scott Coletta. His Coletta Flying Services Oldsmobile, part of a two-car team, sponsored by his dad, Connie Coletta. The competition here in round number 2 is the reigning Winston champ, the Century Tack and Gauges Oldsmobile of Bruce Larson. His crew chief, Maynard Yanks, playing traffic cop, trying to get Bruce back into the center of the lane right where he did the burnout. The intent is to get the rear tires right on the marks left on that long, smoky burnout over the starting line. As you can see, he's getting dead center in those tracks. If there is available traction, it is right there. What a story Larson is. He came into this race third in the Winston point standings and qualified first with a 5.30, beating Dale Poldy in round 1. His competition, Scott Coletta, qualified 8th at a 5.43. And we saw earlier Mark Oswald leave the red line at the starting line, giving the win to Coletta. But for Larson, this could well be the turning point in his quest for a repeat Winston championship. He has yet to win a race this season, and he knows that he's got to get into the winner's circle starting soon if he plans on being a repeat champion. Coletta is certainly the underdog in this race. With nearly a 1/10 of a second difference, he took a shot at the tree and lost, and Larson went up in smoke. What a break. Karamesines got it in top fuel. Here, Bruce Larson gets it in funny car. A tire-smoking effort by Larson, and still the victory and the advancement to the round of 4. Look at his elapsed time, 12:62. Not much danger of him getting lane choice with that kind of elapsed time. But Larson doesn't care. He knows he is continuing to earn Winston points. Ed McCulloch and K.C. Spurlock, one of the rivalries that has developed this season. This is a rematch of the final round down at Gainesville, Florida, in the Gator Nationals, where McCulloch picked up his first victory of the season, and Spurlock finished runner-up after his big win at the Winter Nationals to kick off the year. Young driver out of Nashville, Tennessee, qualified 6th at a 5.41 and beat Jim Murphy in the first round, while Ed McCulloch qualified number 3, his time a 5.36, and his first round victim was Richard Hartman. McCulloch in the Miller High Life car just a week ago absolutely dominated the Denver race, the Mile High Nationals, where he took the victory. Spurlock, though, one of the quickest cars in the country, one of only 5 to have run in the 5 teens, and he redlines. McCulloch gets handed again. The elapsed time, 5:42 for McCulloch and 2:66, as K.C. Spurlock could not wait and had to leave, and when he did, the red light was left behind. A tremendous amount of work being performed on all these race cars between rounds in Gene Snow's pit area. They're preparing that Emily Special to get ready to race against Frank Hawley in the Final Four. Work goes on in the pit area of Chris Karamesines, his Final Four opponent, Gary Ormsby. Down at the far end of the racetrack, let's join Steve Evans with Ed McCulloch.
Well, a 5.42 ace, but it really didn't matter. He red lighted.
Yeah, I saw that, but, you know, it just happens that way, you know.
We've seen more red lights among top pro drivers in one race than you would in 4 or 5.
I don't know if there's, I don't know that there's a problem.
I don't think so.
I don't think that there's any problem with the light. I think that everybody's just, you know, antsy, and when it's time to go, it's time to go. And sometimes as your mind says no and your foot says go.
And it's this time of the season you've got to start winning if you're some of these drivers.
For Casey Spurlock, it's a disappointment, but for Ed McCulloch, he's happy to take that win. That's 200 more points in a very tight chase with John Force for the lead in the Winston Championship. Here now is Joe Pisano's car, driven by Glenn Micris. In the other lane, the man we were just talking about, the leader in the championship, four-time winner this season. This is John Force at the wheel of the Castrol Oldsmobile. Force qualified here in the number 2 spot at a 5:35. He beat Wyatt Radke in round 1, while Micris qualified 7th. His elapsed time was 5:42. His victim in round number 1 was Big Jim Dunn. Micris now through the burnout procedure and into staging. This car recently repainted a magnificent candy apple red, standing out here in the bright Northern California sunshine. John Force wanting to continue his quest for his first ever Winston title. A close race, and John Force hits the parachute and the fuel shut off, pulling on the brake as we rode along with him on that victory over Glenn Micris. His elapsed time, 5:46 at a speed of 272. As we watch again from the outside, you can see that Force was very late, giving the initial lead to Micris. Remember all the movements that John Force was making with the steering wheel? Necessary to keep the car in the center of the lane. He overcame the lead by Micris right at the finish line for the victory.
He ran a 5:46, John.
No lane choice. We're excited. I just wish some of these other guys would give us some help. Coletta let me down there. This point steel's tough, and you need these guys to pick off Larson and McCullough. Somebody. Don't lay it all on me.
The red light-itis has got him.
He got something, but Micker's old Paisano's guy, he gave me a driving job up there. I don't know what happened, but he moved on me. I couldn't believe it. I had my stuff together and trying to be aggressive, but better get a whole lot tougher. Stay away from them Oreo cookies, huh?
Steve, I think I figured out the secret of John Force. You just don't breathe when you talk. It just rolls out. But a great interview, as always, as the next pair of cars getting themselves ready to go. This is Art Hendy at his Tinker Toy Pontiac Trans Am, the team of Hendy and Worsham. Racing against them is Jerry Caminito, the Blue Thunder car out of Brooklyn, New York, making its first ever West Coast visit. He qualified number 12 with a 5:53. His opponent, Art Hendy, the 13th qualifier at a 5:59. He upset Jim White in round number 1, but Jerry Caminito also pulled off a big upset, beating Tom Hoover in his first round race. Caminito smoking the tires, but Hendy has troubles, and Caminito recovers for the win. Jerry's wife, Marion, showing the ecstasy of victory as he advances into the Final Four with a 6:44 elapsed time. That sets up the pairings in the round of 4 in Funny Car at the California Nationals. It'll be Jerry Caminito against Bruce Larson, and believe it or not, a 6:44 earns Caminito the choice of lanes, while John Force and Ed McCulloch square off in a battle of the Titans in the Winston Points Championship.
Hey, the engine is just fine in Jerry Caminito's car, but sooner or later they may have to put a new steering wheel on it. It may wear out first. Incredible.
This is getting to be fun. I mean, I never had so much fun at a racetrack. I might go into round racing. I really was having a good time out there. I didn't believe it.
Well, you got here first again, too.
I didn't believe that either. I didn't think that could happen twice in a row, but it did.
And the amazing thing is, with that run, you will have lane choice.
Oh, yeah? Oh, very good.
You want to try the other lane, maybe?
This got to be my day. I tell you, we thought we almost didn't make it here when we got stuck on that mountain, but this is great.
You had some transportation problem.
Oh, yes, we got stuck on the mountain when we were coming into California. It stopped. The truck just not would go any longer. Clean the spark plugs, put a little additive to the gasoline, and we finished the journey. We're here, and the truck's apart in the pits. All the pistons are out of it, but the pistons are in this one.
He is having a good time. So are we watching him. Brooklyn, New York.
Steve, it's a matter of priorities. Keep the race car running on race day.
When was the last time you had the kind of car to bring the road alive? Have you driven a Ford? Then you don't know what you're missing. Have you driven a Ford? Driven a Ford? Have you driven a Ford? Let
All of these championship-winning drivers have one thing in common: Goodyear Racing Eagles. The race-winning technology that's found in the Goodyear Racing Eagles can also be found in the world's best-selling line of high-performance street tires, Goodyear Eagle Street Radials. The champions know, and it's why we say the best tires in the world have Goodyear written all over them.
Back at the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals at Sears Point International Raceway, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and over 68,000 people have jammed into this sprawling facility this weekend to watch the very best in Winston Championship drag racing. Here is the 10-time champion. We're riding with Bob Glidden in his Motorcraft Ford Probe. Alongside of him in this Final Four matchup is Mark Powick and his Oldsmobile, the national record holder for the Pro Stock class at a 7.22 second elapsed time. Bob Glidden has had his share of problems throughout this season, but not here at Sears Point. He qualified number 2 with a 7.30, beat Don Beverly and Ricky Smith earlier. Powick ran 7.32 for the number 6 spot. He beat Gary Herman and Jerry Ekman to gain an appearance in this round of 4. The classic battle of the mates. Ford and General Motors as Glidden intently concentrating on getting his car set at the starting line. 500 cubic inch engines. The cars weigh 2,350 pounds, and we're riding with Bob Glidden. And you just took a ride to the championship round as Glidden defeated Powick a 7.34 at 188 miles an hour. Powick trailing at a 7.45. Into the burnout procedures, the huge tires burning rubber. That's the only way you can get them hot enough to work. They're designed to work at elevated temperatures. And Kenny Delco and Daryl Alderman going through the procedures to heat up those 17-inch wide tires. Down at the far end of the track, Steve Evans.
I think we're about to see the enthusiasm of a rookie in this veteran Bob Glidden.
I'm going to tell you, I feel like a rookie, Steve. This is the first time we've been to the finals since, my gosh, first of the season.
How important is lane choice? You may not get it.
I'm not sure. We almost went back to the left lane that time. I don't think there's any difference right now.
All right, well, let's find out who indeed will face Bob Glidden in the final.
Steve, just when the other Pro Stock racers thought it was safe to get back on the racetrack, here once again comes the big red and white machine of the Glidden family. On the starting line, Kenny Delco going through his staging procedures. Delco qualified number 13 with a 7.34, and in his first round race, he was pitted against Larry Morgan, the winner at Denver and winner of 4 events this season. But it was Morgan's Waterloo here at Sears Point as he got a slight advantage over Delco. But in this first round race, it was Delco all the way. He outpowered Morgan, a 7.39 to a losing 7.41. Delco then went on to round number 2 and beat Bruce Allen to bring him to the Final Four, where he faces Daryl Alderman, the number 8 qualifier, at a 7.32. Alderman in his Mopar Parts Dodge beat Joe Lapone and W.J. Warren Johnson in the first and second round, respectively, and now faces Kenny Delco in the Paul Rubeski Construction Company Pontiac. A tremendous race to the finish line, and Daryl Alderman into the finals once again. 7.34 at 188 miles an hour, while Delco had a 7.39 at 187. As we take a look at this race once again, in instant replay, Delco on the near side of the racetrack did a great driving job. He had about 100th of a second advantage over Alderman. As the two cars made their way down the racetrack, the Dodge quickly pulled alongside and then ahead of the Pontiac. Alderman was able to maintain that margin of advantage until the finish line, where he took the victory and moved to the championship round, where it will be Daryl Alderman and his Dodge Daytona against Bob Glidden and his Ford Probe, Glidden having the choice of lanes. Let's go to Steve with Daryl Alderman.
Well, Daryl, they just announced that by a few thousandths of a second, you have lost lane choice to Bob Glidden.
Oh, goodness. Well, we'll just do our best, Steve. we didn't run as good that time in the right-hand lane. We had a little tower spin, so we'll just have to go back and tune her up and get ready for the left-hand lane, it looks like.
Mark Powick, who's defeated by Glidden, said his car shook horribly in that lane.
Well, we're just going to have to deal with it because he's got lane choice, and I know he'll definitely be tough, too.
They'll deal with it.
Steve, for Darrell Alderman, a somewhat subdued attitude headed into the finals against Bob Glidden. In the pit area, they're working on Ed McCulloch's mount, getting it ready for the race against John Force in the Final Four of Funny Car. That's at the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals. As always, one of the most popular racers at any event is John Force, and he responds in kind to the fans with an autograph and a big smile. Just a couple of trailers over is another popular guy, Steve Evans.
Work is progressing nicely in the Jerry Caminito pit area as his crew readies that fuel racer for its third round of competition. But one problem he's going to have to deal with eventually in his operation is the trailer. Well, not so much the trailer, it's all the weight they jam in the trailer these days. Pickup trucks were never built for this duty. That's why almost everybody uses big rigs. Take a look at this. Normally we show you race car parts. This is all off the truck. The oil pan, the timing chain, the manifold, the cylinder head. Well, let's have a look here. It's not pretty. But this is what Jerry Caminito is going to have to deal with tonight after the races, win or lose. Now, his fellow racers would be quick to his aid if it was the race car. Nobody wants to work on a dirty old truck.
Of course, Steve, it doesn't make enough horsepower, and as you said, it's dirty. Here we are in the Final Four of Top Fuel. Lance Larson heading up the crew on Chris Karamesini's car, diving in to check over the engine, while Gary Ormsby very calmly waits as his crew chief Lee Beard has placed him just where he wants him on the starting line. Ormsby needs some help from Karamesini's. He got it the round before when Karamesini's beat Amato. Now, Ormsby needs the win to take the points lead away from Joe. Ormsby in the near lane, Karamesini's in the far side of the track. They are now both ready, and the Greek loses traction. Ormsby streaks for the finish line. He is into the championship round, and most importantly, the Winston points lead. His elapsed time of 5:13, his speed 283. That 5:13 off pace just a little bit. For Karamesini's, the dream has come to an end as he continues his quest for his first ever NHRA National Event title. As we watch the burnouts of Gene Snow and Frank Hawley, let me remind you that at the end of this race, we're going to be announcing the winner of the Goodyear Eagle Driver of the Race Award. And Goodyear will be giving a $1,000 check to SEMA, the scholarship fund of the Specialty Equipment Market Association, in that driver's name. Frank Hawley has already won that honor. It came at Columbus in the Spring Nationals, where he made his debut at the wheel of Darrell Gwynn's car and won the race. Steve?
5:13. Is that your crew chief being conservative, not wanting to smoke the tires?
That's for sure. We hazed him a little bit last run, and we're going to not do that this run against him, make a mistake and beat ourselves.
Well, if Hawley is your opponent, you'll have to step it up.
Oh, no question about it. Well, we know what to do to step it up.
A little more clutch on the low end would be my guess.
Sounds like some more armchair announcer advice to me, Steve, but I think you're right, and certainly Gary Ormsby has got the confidence in that man, Lee Beard, his crew chief. Gene Snow relies on Chris Eckert to turn the wrenches on his top fuel dragster and tune him up to challenge Frank Hawley here in the Final Four. Ken Veeney serving as the crew chief with Jerry Gwynn, the team manager on this car. Hawley has certainly been consistent. He had a great 5:05 in that second round victory over Dick LaHaye. And Snow breaks traction, and Hawley thunders for the finish line. The crew reacting to a tremendous elapsed time. 5.04 seconds to cover the quarter mile. His speed over 278 miles an hour. That sets up the championship round, where Hawley will race Gary Ormsby, who you remember only ran 5:13. Hawley gets the lane choice. In Bruce Larson's pits, they're putting the final touches on that car. He'll be facing Jerry Caminito in the Final Four of Funny Car. That's coming up in just a moment. Let's go to Steve at the far end.
Well, I think Gary Ormsby's conservative approach has cost him lane choice. Your 5:04, Frank Hawley, gives it to you.
Well, you know, we're going to need a little help. Gary's really quick on the starting line. We know that. But Ken's just working on keeping the car real consistent today. If we can keep it in the middle 5.0s, we might pull off our second victory.
And lead with Gary.
Yeah, we're going to try and do that, too. Thank you.
If anybody can, it's Frank Hawley.
They're all still here. This record-breaking crowd at the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals, and they're getting ready for the race of the day in funny car. As far as the Winston point standings is concerned, it will be Ed McCulloch, who is second at the moment, to John Force. That's his opponent in this Final Four matchup. Earlier, Steve had a chance to take a look at just part of the opening ceremonies for this California Nationals.
At every event, the National Hot Rod Association always presents a very well-choreographed pre-race festivity. Now, it varies from race to race, but it always ends the same, with the crowd cheering Mark Slater as he perishes to the ground with the largest American flag to ever exit an airplane. Unbelievable. To the Lee Greenwood tune, I'm proud to be an American. And I know I share, along with thousands of people here today, the pride of being a member of NHRA. You can join us by calling the number on your screen. You'll receive a 48-week subscription to National Dragster, a patch, a pen, a rule book, a window decal, and if you call now, a copy of the Diamond P Sports video, Drag Racing 89. Come along with us.
Now on that same starting line where Steve was earlier, we're ready for the Final Four race between John Force and Ed McCulloch. Austin Coyle, the crew chief for Force, pulling him into the staging beams. He'll give him some hand signals, not much. That means there's lots of traction there, and Force getting himself ready to challenge McCulloch. Both drivers taking their time about staging. The first to come into the beams, Ed McCulloch. Now Force left the brake off. And McCulloch up in smoke. Force with a driving jump. Heads down the quarter mile to the victory. And a 5.54 second elapsed time. His speed, 265 miles an hour. In beating Ed McCulloch, John Force earns an additional 200 points and remains in competition as one half of the championship round. Here now comes the second pair in the Final Four. It'll be Bruce Larson in the far lane, Jerry Caminito in the near lane. In both of his previous races today, Jerry Caminito has lost traction. He's had his hands full driving the race car, but yet here he is in the Final Four. The question is, can that string of luck continue? Steve?
I tell you, that was one great job of driving, John. The car skating all over your lane.
Talk about talking to God, talking to Austin Coyle. I'm cussing the front ends up. That son of a gun's going toward the center line. I thought, she's over, baby. You're going to cross and ram this little beauty. And she just settled down and come back off. Thank God. God, this is getting painful. No shoot.
I'm done, Dave.
Well, Steve, obviously John Force is not done. Looks like a shadow boxer as he receives the congratulations of his crew. He is into the championship round to race one of these two drivers. Jerry Caminito in the near lane. Bruce Larson in the far lane. Buster Couch, the starter, intently watching both drivers and the Christmas tree. And it is Larson pulling away easily from a troubled Caminito. The time, 5.36 seconds. His speed, 273 miles an hour. And for Jerry Caminito, the string of luck finally came to an end. The only problem is all he has got to look forward to now is rebuilding that dirty old truck motor. The finals, the funny car, John Force against Bruce Larson, and that great 536 by Larson earns him the lane choice. The crewman on Gary Ormsby's car putting the final touches on the oiling system. They've been through the engine, getting it ready for the finals against Frank Hawley, the clutch man, setting the spacing between the discs and the plates. That determines how much slippage there will be when he leaves the starting line. Let's go to Steve Evans.
Well, Bruce Larson masters perfectly the lane that John Force could barely handle, a 536.
It's been shaky today. We smoked the tires because something went wrong with the clutch. Unfortunately, at the last minute, Maynard found it, but kind of lost his baseline from the former tune-up, so he did a good job.
Now, you have lane choice. Would you take that same far lane again?
I didn't really like it. It didn't feel real good.
I think I know where we'll find John Force in the final.
In the lane that he had so much trouble with here in the Final Four.
You work for it.
In the pit area, Frank Hawley, that's crew chief and talented cylinder head expert Ken Veeney, getting the motor ready for the finals of Top Fuel.
You know, my prediction is...
The two finalists in Pro Stock Eliminator at the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals making their way to the starting line, and what a battle it is between the Dodge of Darrell Alderman and the Ford of Bob Glidden. Two of the favorite drivers of this huge crowd, and they are meeting in the final round. Earlier, Steve visited the sportsman pits and found a very unique car.
You know, we said before that going to one of these NHRA national events is attending a race and a car show at the same time. And of the hundreds of sportsman entries here at Sears Point this weekend, this one stopped me right in my tracks. It's a super gas car driven by Gary Cook from Minnesota, a replica of the 1990 Corvette. And if you think the exterior of this car is gorgeous, wait till you get a look under the hood. Gary and guys, flip-top front end reveals a perfect engine. Everything chromed and anodized and polished. And this is a dual-purpose car. They can run super gas with this carburetor. They want to go into the quicker super comp category. They just put a bigger carburetor on it. It'll make that much more horsepower. Now, the last time I checked, Dave, Gary was cooking towards the semifinals. How did he do? And who won the other sportsman categories?
Well, Steve, Gary Cook was toasted in the semifinals by the driver in the near lane. That's Jerry Schumard. In the finals, he faced Dave Richardson. Schumard got a big advantage at the starting line, and that provided him the cushion necessary to take the victory over Dave Richardson and the Super Gas title. In the other sportsman categories contested earlier today, in top alcohol dragster, the winner, Blaine Johnson. For the second race in a row, Pat Austin won top alcohol funny car. David Nickens, the winner in competition eliminator. In super stock, Ken Holtzman was the champion. Tony Hughes won stock eliminator. And the super comp champion, Mike McBair. Our congratulations to all the winners here at the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals, and we'll have a winner in Pro Stock in just a moment as Bob Glidden comes to the starting line to race Darrell Alderman. Glidden's right hand resting atop the shifting levers. He'll pull those levers to change gears in the transmission as he heads down the racetrack. Collecting their thoughts, getting themselves organized, concentrating on the starting procedures. It is all important, as we've already seen today. A victory can be decided by the advantage at the start. And it is Glidden with problems. Something goes wrong inside the car, and Darrell Alderman wins his second race of the year. His elapsed time, 7.35 seconds. His speed, 188 miles an hour. And with this victory, Alderman advances into the number 4 spot in the Winston standings, displacing that man, Bob Glidden. Here now is the reigning champion. Yet to take a victory this season, Bruce Larson challenging the man that is leading the points chase, John Force. This is the funny car final here at the California Nationals. Bruce Larson rolling all the way nearly to the starting line before he starts his burnout. He wants the rubber right down in the area where he'll be leaving the line. John Force smoking in the inside of that race car as he grabs the brake handle to bring it to a stop after the burnout. Let's go to Steve with the Pro Stock winner.
We've known a long time how good a driver you are, Darrell, but this whole team proved itself. You can run down any racetrack now with this Dodge.
Yeah, I really had my doubts about getting down the left-hand lane because we hadn't got down the left-hand lane all weekend, and I knew that's where Bob would put me. But the car worked pretty good in that lane, and I don't know, evidently I drove pretty good too.
Evidently you did, and you just saw Glidden disappear. He had big problems.
He shake. I figured he did, so. That's all I can say. The Mopar Performance Dodge is really running good, and Wayne County Speed Shop has done a good job preparing it for this race.
You get a lot of Chrysler Corporation race fans that come around this car. You're the only one they got to root for.
Yeah, I know it, and you know that sort of makes the whole deal that much more special. But I'm sure in time there's going to be a lot more Dodges out here running in Pro Stock.
We hope so. Great job.
Thank you.
Well, if they run like Darrell Alderman, it is certainly going to be a competitive class, as if it wasn't already. John Force is certainly a strong competitor, and as we saw a bit earlier, he's definitely on a roll here at Sears Point International Raceway. Force has gotten his final instructions from Austin Coyle. For Bruce Larson, he selected the near lane. He had a 5:36 in the previous round. Let's ride with John Force on this run. John having to drive just a bit. Down across the finish line first in the championship to John Force at a 5.44 second elapsed time. His speed 270 miles an hour. John Force wins the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals, and as we look again in replay, he did it in fine style. Force reacting first to the starting lights. He got off the starting line well ahead of Bruce Larson. Then as they traveled down track, he extended that lead. The victory, a 5.44 second win to a losing 5:47. Steve?
Well, John, as he picks up his $300 trick sunglasses, you've done it again. You've done it again.
It's amazing. It's great to do it here. And
listen to those fans.
To do it here in California, and you got to whip up on these guys when they give you the break. Without the sponsors, we know it. Here we are again, Casserole, Jolly Rancher, Easy Wider, the Wax Shop. I love all these people that support us. Give the deal to the crew. Austin Coyle's great. My crew's great, but I got to tell you something. Mooneyham, you're out there somewhere. We sacrificed your parts today, and my bill's running up. But that baby right into the lights before she blew the blower off her. But it was good running. Thank you.
Mooneyham, who builds the blowers. The big difference in this car was its top-end charge.
It came on. Coyle said he was going to give her some down there at the other end. And she went out, and all of a sudden she jerked the front end up. And I said, oh, talk to me, baby. But yesterday we sacrificed the blower and banged it, and I was crying about the parts bill. And she let another one go.
He's got plenty of money tonight to buy more than one supercharger.
Steve, the first time I've ever seen John Force smiling about a broken part, but it came in the final round as he won the championship of this California National. Under the brilliant blue skies of Northern California, the one race remaining on the schedule of the Motorcraft Ford California Nationals is for the title Top Fuel Eliminator. Will it be Frank Hawley in Darrell Gwynn's car? Hawley has had the quicker elapsed times of each round of competition. Plus, he holds low elapsed time of the meet, that 5:01 he turned in qualifying. For Gary Ormsby, he comes into this final round the underdog on paper. He was 9/100ths of a second slower than Hawley in the round of 4. But as Frank told Steve Evans, remember, Ormsby is noted for his reaction times off the starting line. Down now to the final staging procedures. As they creep forward into the lights, it indicates they're ready. Buster Couch sends them on their way. And Gary Ormsby pulls off the upset. 5:09 at 278 miles an hour. Hawley was the car to slow. 5:11 at 279. Let's look again in replay. It was Ormsby all the way. 1/100th of a second quicker off the starting line. 2/100ths of a second quicker to cover the quarter mile. And that was the margin of victory as Hawley closed it down at the finish, but yet not enough.
1 year ago today, Gary Ormsby was upside down on this racetrack. Now you're just tipped over with happiness, really.
That's for sure, Steve. You know, we tried not to let it worry us a little bit about what happened here last year and about all the extra pressure of the hometown people and everything. And, well, I got to admit it was a little extra pressure today, but we pulled it off.
Talk about pressure. What about Frank Hawley?
Yeah, what happened to him?
Well, no, he was right beside you. You couldn't see him. But, I mean, racing that car, you knew he could beat you in a heartbeat.
Oh, most definitely. He'd run quicker all day than we had. I don't even know what we ran. I just know we got here first, and that's all that matters.
You got off the mark first again.
Oh, super. Thanks, Steve.
Gary Ormsby has won it all. And, in fact, he has been voted the Goodyear driver of the race. Dave?
You're exactly right, Steve. Goodyear will be sending a check for $1,000 in the name of Gary Ormsby to the Scholarship Fund of the Specialty Equipment Market Association. It will be from a very good driver for a very good cause. In the standings in the Winston Points Chase, Gary Ormsby moves into the lead over Joe Amato. Dick LaHaye third, Laurie Johns now down to fourth, and Gene Snow in the number 5 spot. After 12 of 19 events this season, John Force extends his lead over Ed McCulloch in the funny car category. Larson is third, Mark Oswald fourth, Casey Spurlock in the number 5 spot. The reshuffling that took place in Pro Stock found Darrell Alderman moving into fourth. The field headed by Warren Johnson. Jerry Ekman is second, Larry Morgan third, and Bob Glidden number 5. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long for now. The 1990 NHRA Motorcraft Ford California Nationals has been brought to you by AutoZone, the best parts in auto parts, and by Ford and your Ford.